It's a beautiful morning. I think I'll go outside for a while and just smile. Just taking some clean, fresh air. Oh, no sense in staying inside. If the weather's fine and you got the time, it's your chance to wake up and plan another brand new day. Either way, it's a beautiful morning. Each bird keeps singing his own song. So long, I've got to be on my way now. No fun just hanging around. I got to cover ground, you couldn't keep me down. It just ain't no good if the sun shines and you're still inside. Still inside. Still inside. Still inside. We'll be children with robins and flowers. Sunshine caresses each new waking hour. Seems to me that people keep seeing more and more each day. Gotta say, lead the way. It's okay. Gotta say, it's okay. All right. Gotta say, lead the way.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Houston, and I'm the Executive Director for Scenic Houston. We're so glad to have you all here with us today. If you have never joined us for one of these really great Scenic Mornings events, welcome. And if this is your first time, we're really excited to have you. And if you've joined us before, get ready for some really great panelists again. We're super excited about this topic. Especially with all the public art that's happening in Houston. Just a couple of notes. If you have, we're going to go through our panelists. The program will go through our panelists first, our three wonderful panelists. And then if you have a question, please put it in the chat to Blanca Ortega. She's one of the hosts and she'll take your questions. And then our moderator today, Roger Soto, will answer your questions after the panelists have done their presentations. I'd like to say a great thank you to our sponsor this morning, C3 Building Solutions, which is owned by one of our board members, Ms. Crystal Casey. So thank you, Crystal, for sponsoring our event this morning. We appreciate you greatly. And I'm going to get moving here. I'm going to introduce our wonderful moderator for the day. His name is Roger Soto. Lucky for us, he's a board member of Scenic Houston, but in his real life, he is the principal designer for HOK. He's the design principal for projects in Texas and along the US Gulf Coast. He's a member of HOK's board of directors and global design board and serves an integral role in steering the direction of the firm's work in the Texas region. Roger is recognized for his design expertise in complex planning and design through the US and abroad. He is highly regarded for his expansive knowledge in sustainable design and considered an industry expert in the design of high-performance tall buildings, as well as complex corporate campuses, higher education, hospitality, and healthcare facilities. And again, we feel very lucky to have Roger on our board of directors. And Roger, I know this subject is dear to your heart, so thank you so much for moderating for us this morning, and I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you so much, Heather. I appreciate that. Very nice introduction. Look, I'm honored to moderate this panel today, and very honored to have three very distinguished panelists to speak today about something that unites them all, even though they come from slightly different backgrounds in the art world. The unifying factor is public art in our communities, and I think that's going to give us a really interesting perspective of where we are today with public art in Houston. For me, as an architect, I have to say that placemaking is a fundamental part of what I think is my mission and duty as an architect. Creating public civic spaces is one of my passions. And I believe very strongly that public spaces represent who we are as a community. They are spaces to provide delight, they are to inform, and they're to challenge. And public spaces, aside from being places where you can rest and enjoy the company of others, is also a place where you should grow and learn. And I think art can teach us many of those things and provide us new insights. And so I'm very pleased today to say these panelists will talk to you about that. Let me introduce them one by one. First, Alison Weaver. Alison is the director of the Moody Arts Center, where she has been since 2015. I don't know how many of you have been to the Moody Arts Center, but it is a terrific facility. The programs there are amazing. Before coming to the Moody Arts Center, she joined us from the Guggenheim Museum in New York, where she was the director of affiliates. Her background has very extensively been in art, exhibition management, registration services, and really all the aspects of curatorial art that you can imagine, with exposure to much of the art world throughout the United States and the rest of the world. What also fascinates me personally about what Alison is doing with the Moody Arts is the Rice program, the Rice Public Art Program at the university, which she'll talk about. And I'm really excited to hear more about that, because I think as a Rice graduate, I'm very proud of what's happening and delighted to go and visit, all the facilities that are there, all the installations that are there today. The other panelist I want to introduce you to is Elia Quiles. Elia and her husband Noah own and operate Up Art Studio out of Houston, Texas. And their mission is to instill civic pride through civic art. They develop and work on projects that educate, move, and engage communities. Elia and Noah facilitate art projects for artists locally and globally, for communities and corporations. They're very passionate about public art. The thing that you might know them most about is the initiative that they launched in 2015 to transform traffic signal control cabinets in the city into mini murals. And I'm sure many of you have seen them. They're really, really wonderful installations. In addition to that, Elia has created a website that maps out the Houston artwork in the city. It's the Houston Mural Map, which is really pretty cool. You should go because there's so much to see. And lastly, Elia, I just read in the news that you were leading a master plan for public art in Laredo, which has been approved in January. I'm fascinated to hear about that. Finally, I'd like to introduce you to Theresa Escobedo. Theresa is a multidisciplinary artist, curator, and a Civic Art Program Manager for the City of Houston through Mayor Turner's Office of Cultural Affairs. Theresa is also co-founder and curator of Manteca HTX, a public online index of Latinx artists active in the greater Houston area. And through these roles, Theresa has curated, coordinated, executed public programs and projects designed to activate public spaces and to offer artists the opportunity to impact neighborhood experiences through creative placemaking and social inquiry. And Theresa, I was looking through your bio, and you've been in this area of practice so long. You've had so many experiences. I'm really fascinated to hear about all the things that you've been doing. The Main Street Project, for instance, which was a pretty interesting. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Alison and have you, Alison, present your PowerPoint, and then each of the panelists will present their own presentation subsequent to that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Roger, for that really kind introduction. It's really a pleasure to be with you this morning, and I'm going to, let's see if I can share my screen. Hopefully you can all see this. As art people, we like images. So we definitely want to have some beautiful photos this morning to talk about the impact of the arts really for the community, and the ways in which we're pursuing that at Rice, which I think has hopefully changed and is coming to greater attention in the last few years. So I'll just launch right in, if that's all right. I know we want to get to everybody's conversation, but I just wanted to start by saying, for those of you who don't know, Rice University is a 300-acre campus, really in the center of the city, in between the medical center and the cultural district. So we have this really wonderful location, which has really become a site of public art. And I credit in many ways our most well-known work, which is our James Turrell Twilight Epiphany Sky Space, which is a freestanding sculpture and a light installation by the important California-based land and light artist, James Turrell. And what many of you may know about the Sky Space is that it operates really like a public park. It's open air. It's out in the grounds of the university. And every evening at sunset and every morning at sunrise, this light show projects onto the roof of the structure, and you sit inside and watch the light change. And it's always free and open to the public. And that's sort of our theme today, is that one of the greatest things about public art is that, unlike indoors in an institution, and as Roger mentioned, I also oversee the Moody Center for the Arts, which is an indoor space, also free, but indoor. I think public art is so available to people who come to visit, but also people who are just going about their day, and the way in which it has a durational impact over time. But the Sky Space opened 10 years ago. So we're celebrating this year a really exciting 10-year anniversary. And what's been so unique about the Sky Space at Rice is let's see if I can advance my slide here, whoops, is its embedded speaker system, and the fact that we've been able to activate the inside of it with performance and music. So one of the themes I want to sort of underscore is the way in which public art is both something that affects people in their day-to-day as they're walking by, but also a space that's generative for more artwork. So it inspires others, whether it's other visual artists or other performing artists. And the Sky Space at Rice has been the site of many interesting performances, both musical, and this was a dance piece that we commissioned in 2012 by Dushan Tainak. And it was really, really exciting to see this space come to life with movement. This is another important work in our collection. I'll show you a handful of our permanent collection, and then a handful of our temporary projects, which is something new to our process at Rice. This is a sculpture by Jaume Plensa, who many of you may know from his work on Buffalo Bayou. You can see his sculptures as you drive down Allen Parkway. There's a work called Mirror from 2011, which you can walk in and around. It's comprised of letters from all around the world. And it's also, here we are showing some musicians, Shepherd School musicians, who composed an original piece in response to the language, the letters that comprise the sculpture. This is a work by Mark de Suvero, another important American sculptor. It's called Poem Lyric. It's inspired by a poem by Ezra Pound. And it's a kinetic piece that sits adjacent to the Moody. You see the Moody in the background there. And this is a performance that we did during COVID. So during COVID, something that we were able to do, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I think public art took on an importance during COVID that none of us could have anticipated, as outdoor spaces became critical to our livelihoods and our mental health and our physical health. What I saw happening across the city in such an exciting way was people getting out and about and really seeing public art and enjoying it. And we were able to both activate that. The campus really operated like Central Park in some ways, or like Herman Park, a memorial park, where people were just biking and jogging and picnicking and strollering. And we were able to have some outdoor concerts, which was great. We've also commissioned Houston artists as part of our public art program. We have both national and international artists, but also Houston artists. This is Houston artist Natasha Bowden, who made this wonderful wall mural inside our Anderson Biology Hall called Power Flower in 2021, which you can imagine is really dynamic and exciting. And we recently brought a work by a woman artist of the same generation as James Turrell named Beverly Pepper. This is called Occam's Wedge. It's a really important work. Beverly Pepper recently passed away, and this was actually the last work she designed before passing. And it's important to us as we think about growing the collection. We have now over 30 objects, and we're adding to that collection. We're very interested in bringing diverse voices. So in terms of gender, background, nationality, but often operating in that format of geometric abstraction that we have a strength in the collection. So we think about it curatorially, as well as wanting to build a collection that reflects both the population of the university and the population of the city of Houston. We've also started doing more temporary projects since I arrived, and we've really started it since 2017 in the last 5 years, activating parts of works on campus in a temporary way that engages both the campus and the community. This is something we did. We erected temporary tent structures during COVID to provide outdoor spaces for safe gathering. And this was a project we did with a Dutch collective called We Make Carpets that was designed entirely remotely from Europe and then installed by community volunteers. So we invited members of the campus and the community to come together on a Saturday and tie these ribbons onto a structure that created, they're each 6 feet long. So it was to create 6-foot distance between visitors. And then once complete, it became a really exciting space for playing, as you see here, and selfies and just exploring in the outdoors. We also have a temporary project series in our Brackstein Pavilion, which is one of our most popular public cafes on campus. It's another modern white building if you've been to campus. This is the current installation by Clarissa Towson called The Eighth Continent. She worked with NASA to get images of the moon that have polar ice, which will eventually be mined for the hydrogen and oxygen in the polar ice will allow for exploration to Mars. And it's also thinking about how we're using planetary resources, both our own planet and those in interstellar space. And I will say, I think public art is a great way to bring different members of the community together with artists. So whether it's scientists from NASA in this case, or in the next piece, this is a work by Sandra Perry, and she worked with Historic Freedmanstown to explore the history of environmental flooding in Freedmanstown. So what you're looking at is the same space in Brackstein Pavilion. These are site-specific commissions by core fellows. They're alumni of the core fellow program at the MFAH. And she has a wallpaper in the background showing sort of the flooding in Houston of the Gulf Coast. And then it's a lenticular panel based on William Turner's slave ship. So these are kind of, I won't go too much into detail, I want to keep going, but I think it's suffice it to say, I think public art is a moment to really invite conversation, both amongst and between artists and the community, but also about critical issues of our time. And we also activate those with performance. So these are two amazing musicians, the Lee brothers, HSPVA graduates, who were able to perform in response to Sandra's piece. And working on that theme of, I would say during the pandemic, we've tried especially hard to commission Texas-based artists because it's really a time of a lot less work, if you will. And we had the opportunity to do a lot of things outside. So this is a mural that we did with Gonzo, and it was created together with members of the campus and the community who actually painted it. He was incredibly generous. If you know Gonzo, you know he's fantastic at working with large groups of people to realize exciting work. And this is a piece by Jasmine Zelaya, also a Houston artist who we commissioned to put during the time of pandemic. This is called Detroit Red. And really, I think, a message of togetherness during a time of isolation. And these are large outdoor tent structures that were erected during COVID to provide additional expanded classroom and meeting and COVID testing space. So we wanted to turn them into sites of welcome and conversation. Another one by Houston artist Karen Broker. There she is on the right, sitting in her chair. And this is a work that we did on the outside of the Moody by Ganzier, who's originally an Egyptian artist now living in Houston. And it was called It Takes a Village. And this was during a time when we really felt the need for support in the community while we were all isolating. This was the height of the summer of 2020, when it was very unclear what was going to transpire, and we were closed. The Moody Center for the Arts, which you see here, the building was closed. So we essentially put the galleries on the outside of the building and were able to commission this work by Ganzier. And during the pandemic, Rice hosted a lot of medical workers that were not going home, but living in the dorms and then working at the med center. So this is something that they were able to hopefully respond to and enjoy on their way to and from work. And I think this, finally, I'll just wrap up quickly, but this is another outdoor project that we did during COVID. And it's that idea that public art is not really static. And I think that, you know, I think it's something that's living and breathing. And sometimes if you drive by something and you may just think it's there, but I really think one of the assets of public art is its ability to both, people get to know it over time in a very durational way, and it may have a different effect over time than it had when you first saw it. And then it also inspires other art forms. And I think that if I could say anything about the city of Houston, it's how incredibly vibrant our arts and culture are. And that we've learned during the pandemic that there are spaces for inspiration and performance throughout the city. So this was a project we did with Annie Arnaud and the Open Dance Project during COVID as well. So I think I'll just do a quick plug if you don't mind. You can find all of the public art collection on our website. You go to moody.rice.edu and you can see all the 30 works and read about them. You can also, we have a fantastic app, and you can go, I'm having trouble advancing the slides, sorry. You can find on our app, so this is something our students made for us. But we have an app you can download in the App Store, and then you can map to all the works on campus. So it's a really fun thing to do on a Saturday. It's like a sculpture park. You know, we have 300 acres. There's works across the campus. You can say, okay, how do I find that Terrell Sky Space? Or how do I find that that tent with Jasmine Zelaya's work on it? And you can actually map to it and then read about it. So we're very excited about this new, only the students are tech enough to have done this for us, which is really great. And I'd finally say, if you're interested in some of those performative events, you can sign up for our Moody newsletter. So you find that on our website too. And I'm going to end there and turn it over to our next speaker.
Thank you, Alison. Elia, it's your turn. I think.
Okay, let me just put it in full screen mode. Okay, I'm just, give me just a second, putting it in full screen mode. I'm having trouble here. Okay, can you all see that? Okay,
Yes, we can.
start. Okay, thank you. I'll just go ahead and not go into full screen mode since it gives me issues. So hi, I'm Elia, co-founder and managing principal with Up Art Studio. We are a public art and creative placemaking consulting firm based here in Houston since 2012. So this year we're celebrating our 10th year anniversary. We provide professional services and partnerships to the public, nonprofit, and private sectors. We've delivered hundreds of murals and other public art projects over the years. And, you know, I'm speaking to you today, and this is our small team. My husband, Noah, and I, partners, and then Mark is our creative director, and we work with, 100+ artists locally and from around the world. And so I'm speaking to you today as a practitioner who's been managing public art plans and projects and commissioning artists to create affordable, uplifting art on the streets of cities, large and small, for almost a decade now. And we started out just doing it for ourselves with a mission of civic pride through civic art. But now we work as consultants to a number of cities and public agencies. Nearly all of our clients are dipping their toes into creative placemaking and public art for the first time. This includes TERZs, which are tax increment reinvestment zones, and management districts here in Houston. And also we're working with other municipalities, around Texas, such as League City and Laredo, Texas, as Roger mentioned earlier. A couple of themes that emerged as I was putting this presentation together is, number one, the importance of partnerships in realizing some of these public art projects. And then number two, how public art can really help transform and positively impact communities. Plus, public art's fun. The community dialogue and the artwork adds joy to people's lives. We get comments all the time about, I saw something and it just made me smile. And I think that at the end of the day, that just, that drives what we do. And so today I'm just going to share maybe about 10 stories about real projects and how they were conceived, funded, and created on the ground. So starting with mini murals, with more than 350 in the Houston area, you're probably already familiar with the Mini Murals project, where we convert the bland traffic signal control cabinets and other utility cabinets into works of art. The project started with an idea and going to the city's Public Works Department for permission. To our surprise and delight, they were very interested in us realizing a program like this, and they had been thinking about it, but just hadn't really found a way to make it happen. And so, of course, they didn't have any money for it. So they tasked us with, if you want to put this program together, then you have to find a way to fund it. They asked us to meet with the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs and the Houston Arts Alliance, and everyone agreed that it would be work best for us to manage the project and work directly with the city on approvals for locations and designs and whatnot. And then we started thinking about how to fund it, and we decided to ask all of the council members if they would fund a few mini murals in each council district. That was our idea. And while we were met with a lot of enthusiasm for the project, only one council member committed to the project fully, and he funded 31 mini murals in his district in the pilot phase alone. And there was an immediate impact on his neighborhood. And with that project, we put more public art outside of the loop that had currently existed in Houston. And so many of the boxes you can see, they're created with input from members of the community, so they often reflect the community where they're located. And the mini murals, now that we've produced more than 350 of them, we've raised more than $750,000 for the program. We've won several awards here in Houston and in Austin, and we've put more than $350,000 back into the local artist community by hiring artists to design and paint these small works of art. I'd say about 40% of them are funded through city council funds and other city funds, and then 60% are funded through other private sources. And speaking of partnerships, we work with the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. Theresa's on the call on this presentation as well. And we work closely with Houston Public Works and countless sponsors in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors to make the project happen. And the Houston mural map, this idea came about sort of serendipitously. I was working on mapping out public art assets for the Montrose Livable Center study, and I was astonished to see how much public art and especially murals abounded in the neighborhood. And so I created a map on Google Maps. And around that same time, I saw an opportunity from the City of Houston and the Houston Arts Alliance for a grant for digital programming, and the light bulb went off. I just thought it would be such a great resource for residents and visitors looking for something to do, especially during the pandemic when social distancing was of the utmost importance. And so the grant was, like seed money to get the website off the ground. The web developer and I also volunteered countless hours to bring the project to fruition. We crowdsourced the information, and I work with interns from the University of Houston downtown to help keep the content updated with submissions from the general public. In the first week that the project launched, we had approximately 17,000 visitors in that first week. Our goal was 1,000 in the first month, so we really hit that one out of the park. And now monthly, we're seeing about 2,500 to 5,000 visitors to the site, unique visitors to the site. And one of the really cool features is that you can, like, for example, go to the artist page, select an artist, and you'll see all of the murals from that one artist. So if you like artist, in this example, 212, you can click on that and you'll see all of his work around town, both murals and mini murals. And we've also included other public art, such as sculptures as well. Like in a similar vein, you can do the same thing with communities. You can click on it on a community, let's just say Aldine, and you'll see the works of art that we have mapped in that community. And the next project that I would like to talk about is called Spreading Knowledge. Smartphone in hand, anyone can experience the cool augmented reality magic of Houston's first commissioned public art augmented reality mural. It's a huge new mural by Houston Artist Duel, and it brightens up the Harris County Aldine Branch Library located at I-45 North in West Houston. The installation is the first in the North Houston District's new public art program that's being planned and produced by us and working closely with the district. The district successfully applied for an AARP community grant, challenge grant to fund the project and to create their AR vision. And AARP works to make public places more welcoming and walkable for older Houstonians and people of all ages and abilities. And they really thought that this was such a unique project that they decided to fund it. The augmented reality portion of it. The 9 foot high by 40-foot wide mural creatively interprets the word knowledge, which resonates with the library's mission. And the Aldine Branch Library serves thousands of nearby residents, including children and youth who attend Boosie Elementary School, Stovall Middle School, and Aldine High School, all on the same block nearby. Literally, when you drive up, it is like a bright beacon in that neighborhood. It just created such a huge visual impact. And so visitors can scan the QR code by the mural with their smartphone, and it allows them to launch an AR experience from their Facebook or Instagram account. And while they hold the phone facing the mural at various angles, the visitor is able to see a vibrant sequence of inspirational phrases, bursting with colors and moving elements such as flying books, birds, butterflies, and colored ribbons. That was just a really cool project to work on. And we're so glad that districts and governmental entities are seeing the impact of public art and how it can affect their communities. The next one is Hernandez Tunnel. So last year we project managed this public art project for the Greater Northside Management District. Together with TERS 21, they funded the mural, which honors the late Judge Alfred J. Hernandez, a leader in the Mexican-American community. He was the first Hispanic elected to the bench in Houston and the namesake of the tunnel. Other images tell the story of the Greater Northside community and include plumeria flowers, the judge's favorite. And it celebrates the Greater Northside District, an area of diverse cultures, businesses, and cuisine for all who travel through the tunnel on North Main Street. In 2015, the Greater Northside Management District, with the guidance of City of Houston Housing and the Community Development Department and the Houston Arts Alliance, they hosted meetings with stakeholders, community residents, and the Hernandez family to obtain input on a fitting tribute to Judge Alfred J. Hernandez. And this shaped the creative development of the project. The city rehabilitated the tunnel in 2019 and with funding from the Texas GLO, and that allowed for the mural. The photos on the bottom there are from the unveiling, which the family and local officials attended. And the next one is Macario Garcia. So after 3 years of planning, we realized the Staff Sergeant Macario Garcia mural on Fire Station 20 in the East End. It's by artist Mez Data, who's known for his realism using a can of spray paint. So it's kind of hard for some people to believe that this was 100% painted with aerosol paint. So for this project, we conceived it, we found the funding, we worked through the city process for donating the work of art to the City of Houston Permanent Art Collection, which required a maintenance fund for conservation and restoration. The mural shows Garcia. He's a hero to Houston's Mexican-American community for his valor and service in World War II. He's flanked between the United States and Mexican flags. He was born in Mexico. He was Mexican national, but served in the United States Army in World War II. So he has the distinguishment of being the first Mexican national to be awarded the Medal of Honor, yet he continued to suffer racial discrimination after his service to his country. So he was also awarded the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, the Combat Infantryman's Badge by the US, as well as the Medal of Mérito Militar in Mexico, which is the equivalent to the US Medal of Honor. And this mural is significant because it brings his memory and story alive to new generations of people in the East End. The street's named after him. It was just such a fitting location for this. We had key partners, which are the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs, the Houston Fire Department, Fire Station 20, and it was funded by TERS 23, the East End District, the East End Improvement Corporation, and Councilmember Robert Gallegos of District I. And the next one is Growing a Brighter Tomorrow in Gulfton. So this project started with a community group expressing interest in the need for a mural to brighten up the high traffic intersection near 3 schools Gulfton's a neighborhood in Southeast Houston that has a lot of problems, highest teen pregnancy rate, lowest income, highest number of zero-car homes, et cetera. It's a lot of immigrants start in this area. And so a local Salvation Army family store there provided the wall. As many children from the neighborhood walked to school there, they'd see the gang graffiti on the Salvation Army daily. It wasn't just normal vandalism. It was literally MS-13 and Southwest Cholos going back and forth on this wall. And so we commissioned an experienced artist who'd worked with a lot with children, Ramon Static from Chicago. And he had more than 20 years of experience working on art projects involving school children and teens. And so he conceptualized imagery that's all about children and a brighter tomorrow. He co-created some of the mural with children from the neighboring elementary school. The children painted small cloth panels in the classroom and they were affixed to the wall. You can see their paintings. It's kind of hard to see in this photo, but in the bark of the tree, they're all lined with the children's paintings. And we worked with the mayor's Citizens Assistance Office, which helped facilitate the location, permission from the school, support from the local community, and permission from the city to paint the sidewalk as well. And the neighborhood group that wanted the mural, they didn't have any funding, so we applied for grants to produce the mural, and we took the initiative to apply, for multiple grants with their support. The mural has succeeded in stopping the gang graffiti on the wall. It brightens up the neighborhood and it is super positive. During the unveiling ceremony, we also painted a temporary playscape on the sidewalk for the children, and it proved popular, encourages healthy, active play. So then we painted a more permanent playscape in front of the mural after that. And upon visiting the site 4 years later, it's great to see the mural untouched by the gang graffiti and the playscape being used by the kids from the neighboring preschool. This here is the first Pride crosswalk in Texas. Alex Hill was killed in this intersection in a hit and run crash in January of 2016. And a mini mural was painted at this intersection to memorialize Alex as a first step. And Alex's friends and family helped fundraise for a temporary crosswalk. And Pride Houston donated $15,000. Traffic Engineers, Inc. donated the traffic plan, and we recruited Harper Brothers Construction and the Montrose Management District to support the project. We worked with Houston Public Works to get the permission for the project. Public Works initially was not sure about the project since it's a regulatory crosswalk, but the mayor pro tem at the time, Ellen Cohen, championed it. She helped the city understand the importance and relevance to the community. And once it was done, it was embraced by the whole community. It had a lot of media coverage. The gay community came out and supported it. Every year now, Houston Public Works gives it a fresh coat of paint before the annual Pride celebration. And once the street is reconstructed, the plan is for it to become a permanent crosswalk, so more durable materials will be used. And so, yeah, the project is just so loved that, this Public Works takes it upon themselves to refresh it year after year. And then lastly, I want to talk about the Five Corners District, District K. We do a lot of work in this area. It started off with this one mini mural in District K. As I mentioned earlier, Councilmember Larry Green supported so many, and he spread them out, so many different communities in his area. And his communities felt an immediate impact. They felt the love. They felt seen after getting so much public art in their district that years later, the district is now starting to invest in more public art. They have a lot more interest and investment in public art now. And so, for decades, the Five Corners area was in need of a boost. In 2015, helped us pioneer the program for the mini murals, which is now expanding dynamically in a part of town that many might not think of first as a haven for public art. So now a robust civic art program is being integrated into other efforts to uplift the quality of this diverse community. The artwork is arising thanks to coordinated and initiatives and funding by the area's two TERZs, tax increment reinvestment zones, and it's endorsed by the Five Corners District. Already in production, the colorful public artworks created by local Houston artists are being installed on roadways and trails. And the Five Corners Management District is going to be providing the maintenance services for these projects so that they can be, so there can be upkeep. And you can see here, we're doing infrastructure projects. This is along a trail, so there's an underpass there. The columns are painted. We created a playscape on the trail as well. You can see the columns in the background there. And then the trailheads to kind of the middle right, you see some colorful flowers there. Those are the trailheads that are all painted leading into that trail. And then another special project is the Tourist 25 gateway lighting. We designed and worked with the lighting and the engineering company to create this design. And the colors on the lights change, they're programmable. It's a really cool system. And then we are also working on imprinted sidewalks and a art banner installation in that area. And then we also had 3 new mini murals that were painted this summer, and they've got at least 6 more coming. So pretty much their entire district is going to be covered with the mini murals. And we also created a public art tour map, which is available. Some exciting things. This is just conceptual, but we're working with them to potentially create a art park that would include painting the columns and sculptures and a trail. This concept is getting a lot of support, and so we're hoping to be able to take that to completion. As well, we're discussing a water tower that's in front of Madison High School, which their mascot's the Marlins. So really envisioning that as a water tank of sorts. And that is what I have for you today. And I'm happy to answer any questions when we are at the conclusion of this program.
Thank you, Elia. Theresa, you're up now.
Okay, let's see what I can do here. I'm going to try to speed through this just a little bit because it seems like we are a little past our pace. 1 second, please bear with me. So many full screen.
We can't hear you, Theresa.
Can you hear me or no?
I can hear you.
You can?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Trying to get there. Okay, are y'all caught up with me? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna run through this. Once again, my name is Theresa Escobedo. I am the program manager, managing the Civic Art Program through the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. I'll mention briefly because Roger mentioned it. I do have a background in architecture. I graduated in 2008 during a recession and thought I totally bailed on a design life. I spent some years working in White Cube galleries. I started some street level arts organizations that presented artwork to the pedestrian public. Those together simultaneously informed my philosophy about who art is for, where it should be, and really real life experience about how art can impact well-being, especially at the pedestrian level. So I'll mention briefly about MoCA. The City of Houston Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs develops policies and initiatives that foster an environment in which art and culture flourish for the sharing and benefit of all residents and visitors to Houston. 2 main arms of what we do at MoCA is we offer, as a service to community, we offer grants, and then we run a civic art program. We do lots of work outside of these, including, for example, the mini murals program that Elia mentioned. We process and sometimes receive gifts. I'll talk a little bit about that. But today I'm going to talk about our civic art program proper that is guided by a civic art ordinance, which was originally established in Houston in 1999. So as part of the city's capital asset investment program, our CIP program, the City of Houston Civic Art Program produces and conserves permanent visual arts for placement in public and civic spaces citywide. The ordinance stipulates that we reserve 1.75% of capital improvement projects if their budget exceeds $500,000. So every vertical building project the city initiates reserves a budget exclusively for commissioning or acquiring art to place in public spaces or at city facilities. It includes a wide array of media. We are actively trying to expand the diversity of the mediums we include in our collection, but you can see a little bit on this slide, the various forms of artworks we consider civic art. Again, the projects are generated through the CIP program by nearly every city department, and it's MOCA's work to provide some oversight and strategy to how we introduce art into neighborhoods and, again, public spaces. At present, the city's civic art collection currently holds about 755 artworks and represents the identities of 468 unique and individual artists. And within the next fiscal year, or the fiscal year we're in now, rather, between 21 and 2022, we will accession over 120 artworks into our collection. So easily by this time next year, we could be looking at close to 900 works of art managed by this program. I want to talk about the foundation of all the work that happens at MOCA. This is a screenshot of the cover of the city's arts and cultural plan. It was developed and released in 2016 through heavy community engagement. So community is, if I had a nickel for every time I heard the word or said the word, I'd be quite wealthy. Community is foundational to everything that we do. And it is community feedback, especially from arts community artists and arts professionals, that predicates everything that happens at MOCA. And so this arts and cultural plan presents 27 recommendations from community members that offer guidance to how MOCA should operate as a representation or representative of citizens in Houston and driving initiatives that impact neighborhoods and artists in our city. I'll just zoom in. At first sight, it doesn't seem that all of these recommendations would apply to the Civic Art Program, but I have adopted every location you see a star is a recommendation I'm responding to as I develop and move through revamping and improving our program. I think an evaluation of the program was done in 2016 that said we've got a great program, but a good program, but it could really be great. Another note about the cultural plan is that it makes an effort to understand the place of Houston as a foundational motivator. And so if you dig into our cultural plan, it does assess the place, Houston, its character. And of course, we all talk about the diversity of Houston. So by these recommendations, which ask us to know our city and to know our own work and to create a vision for how to move forward, one of the first tasks I took the baton for or guided as I came into to work at MOCA was to take a look at our collection and to look as closely as possible at the identities of the artists we've invested in and therefore are representing through the city's civic art collection. Our first pass was very much anecdotal information. We're steadily committed to improving our data, which means engaging the artists in our collection and finding out how they want to be represented. So I'll show some notes from our first two reviews. We released our first in 2020. And we have committed to looking at our collection in this manner annually. So we released also a secondary review in 2021, and we'll have another one released this year in about October. So some key findings, just broad overview of our collection in terms of equity. Houston Civic Art Collection represents white male artists and severely underrepresents BIPOC female artists. And I should say and mention that this is comparing the demographics of our city versus the demographics represented by the artworks in our collection. Hispanic and Latinx artists, Black or African-American artists, and Asian artists are underrepresented despite growing populations in Houston. There have been no significant changes in the collecting outcomes since the adoption of the Civic Art Ordinance in 1999 in terms of equity and gender representation and ethnic representation. And so I looked at the chronology of our collecting to really get a sense of if leadership impacts that, values impact that. And what we really found is that the meat and the magic of this work, especially around equity, comes through selection process and improving outreach. The data findings presented in this report make clear that immediate changes are needed for new acquisition and artist selection processes for the program overall. Our first step, immediate action, was to release this information publicly. Transparency is of the utmost importance to our office and all of the work we do. But we know that long-term measures are needed. What we are seeking to do is to build trust with the artist community, especially in Houston, so that they feel that there is a fair shot ahead of them as they submit to an open call or an RFQ. So again, quick overview of that equity review. This is again from the most recent version. You can see the ethnic breakdown here. Again, this is anecdotal information, but 62% of our collection represents artists who are white alone. 12% we're not sure of, we can't identify and are uncertain of. This probably includes a large number of artists who are deceased. If we were to look at the demographic breakdown of our city, which is searchable and was released recently by the census, we understand that about half our demographics, half our city is Latino or Latinx. About a quarter of our city is Black or African-American. In this case, you see on this chart, the Latino representation in our community is about 6%. It's vastly different than the demographics represented by our city. Black or African-American is the screen section, makes up 7%, artists make up 7% of our collection. So this tells us right away that we have a lot of work to do to make gains in terms of equitable representation and investment by our program. When this was published, the city's civic art collection included 0 artworks from American Indian persons, Alaskan Natives, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islanders. I'm pleased to say that won't be the same this case for the next report, but that is where we were starting from. We also look at gender representation. Most of the city's collection represents males, 59%, almost 60%. Being males, females at 35%, and we have an area where we have not been able to determine or ask artists to self-identify their gender at 8%. We did not find any explicitly gender conforming artists in our research, but as we strengthen our data and survey artists about how they prefer to be represented, these numbers do shift a little. This year, we only had, between last year and this year, we only had 1 artwork accessioned into our collection as an addition. So our numbers look largely the same between 2020 and 2021, but we took the opportunity at this report to look at the geographic placement of artworks from our collection on the territory and terrain of Houston. And so this slide shows kind of a chart demonstrating how many artworks are within each council district. B has an extraordinary amount of artworks compared to District E, which has 0 artworks. District I also carries a lot of artworks. District B is where Intercontinental Airport is, and District I includes the downtown area, which hosts quite a number of artworks from our city's collection. So that's why we see such a spike in the incidence of artworks in those areas, but that really helps us strategize about how we can insert artwork or introduce artwork into District E, for example, District F, which only has 1 artwork. And as a side note, I will say we also facilitate a temporary art program. We think that this is a great strategy for introducing artwork into these areas with no or little artwork in the immediate and the short term. So that is something that this office is also looking at, and it is a part of my work, though not included here. We are in the most active time this program has seen ever. We are simultaneously working on 27 commission projects at this time. We released 5 opportunities last Friday, and I'll share a little bit about those with you at the end. But this is a tremendous amount of work. It is across a number of city departments, not all. Our goal is to activate projects in all departments that have access to civic art funds. So we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but we're moving and grooving full steam ahead. We are actively working on 10 conservation projects that is in all city districts and all city departments, including the airport. We just closed about 15 between December and February. So that gives you kind of a sense of the volume of the work. I will also mention that this work is not possible without steady leadership from our contractor and partner in this work, Houston Arts Alliance. So I'm going to give them a shout out because we would not be able to up the ante on our productivity if it weren't for their support. We just acquired 74 portable works. I'm going to give you a view of a few of those, but this was a tremendous way to add to our collection during the pandemic, releasing funds and eligibility on these to artists exclusively in the greater Houston area. Great projects. We're really, really pleased with the artwork that came to the city through this effort, and more so pleased that we could be of some service to artists during a very challenging time. And then we also occasionally, not often, but occasionally receive gifts of artwork. I mention these not so much to encourage gifting artworks to the city, but to say that we have strategy about all the artwork we add to the collection. And so I'm going to start backwards talking about the gifts of artwork. This is a framed archival pigment print gifted to us by Zeta and Matthew Crate, which were artists who created a short film and also documented the march for George Floyd at City Hall. This is a incredible moment in our city's history, and we felt it important to include and accept this gift in order to mark that history in our collection. It's also true that photography is not a major medium represented in our collection, so it was a great opportunity again to improve our representation of the photographic medium. This piece is in City Hall presently. Elia mentioned this mural. I wanted to include it here because, two things. The major overall point to make about this is an improvement in terms of the Latinx and Latino identity being represented as subject matter and as an honored figure in our collection. So we are so pleased to receive this gift. It is a tremendous work of art. I was very emotional the day that we had the ribbon cutting because you get a sense from the community that they see themselves or they see their ancestors and veterans in this mural and feel connected to it. And it was a really palpable feeling. Elia did a great job on producing the ribbon cutting. But I also wanted to show these two views. The view on the bottom is the first rendering we received. Authenticity is really important to this program. So we asked the Office of Veterans Affairs to double check our flag protocol. And they said, oh, wait, you really got to reverse the flags. So details like that are super, super important. And it was really great to be able to, again, engage the expertise of another department and have them improve the artwork at the street level. This is also a major donation received and unveiled last August. It is a bronze statue of LBJ. I'm not sure how many people from my generation know this, but LBJ was an educator, impactful and working in Houston. And so again, these 3 donations are gifts to the city of artwork, strategically help us tell the story of our city in so many different ways. And that underscores and is related to our equity and representation and storytelling, which is also a really important part of our collection. Some other portable works, we again acquired 74 portable works, but some tremendous artists came in whose trajectory we know will boom and fly as they move forward with their careers. On the left, we have Hold Up by Mitch Stevenson, local artist on the rise, lots of momentum and very active. I'd say the same for Letitia, but she is a Texas artist. This was an open call made to artists in the Texas state. And so a really great opportunity too for us to develop and improve relationship with other municipalities and artists in other spaces. Letitia Huckabee, also an artist on the rise. Inclusion of women and underrepresented mediums here. We have Farimo Fulati, this is a painting, Julia Barbosa Landois as above, so below, a work on paper, kind of rare for our collection, but something we want to make space for and grow in terms of the representation of the media. And then a Houston favorite, much lauded artist, so pleased to have her artwork here by Dorothy Hood. It has not yet been installed, will soon be installed. I should correct, the title of this piece is untitled and it is from 1990. Thinking about object-based works, these also came in through the Portable Works process. I believe we had about more than 700 applicants from across Texas submitted their available works ready to hang or install. And this is a really great comparison, or just a quick look at turning towards object-based work in our public art collection where we can and where the artwork is very safe. There's a wonderful curator, Alton Dulaney, at the airport, who is very honest about the brutality of the airport environment, but also is steadfast in his protection of the artwork. This is the most recent piece installed through the Portable Works acquisition from Alicia Eggert. The present moment used to be the unimaginable future. Here is our HAA's project manager, Joseph Cohen, and Alicia just last Wednesday installing. So it's possible that every trip to the airport in the coming future, near future, gives you a different experience. And we're really excited about that. I should also shout out to Hobby Airport, where this is installed, our first 5-star airport in North America. Quick glances at some new artwork commissions. This is a project that was released, the open call was released in 2019. It will be installed by July of 2022, by this summer. This is a commemorative artwork honoring Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. And on the left, you see a layout of a diagram, so to speak, of layers of imagery. You'll see excerpts from her handwritten speeches, images of her as child. It is going to be fused, 3 layers fused between 3 panes of glass. You can see a sample of the glass on the right, and configured in a semicircular space. In an aerial view, you'll see the symbol for Sapao, which is justice. The artists on this project are Houston born and bred, I'll say, Jamal Cyrus and Sharice Weston. And though she practices out of New York, she is, we claim her and we want to call her Houston artists. So on this slide, you see the rendering of what will be installed. And on the right, you see them actively working to proof prints before they're pressed between and fused between glass. So we're really excited. Again, Houston centric, again, Houston storytelling, improving the representation of Black persons in Houston here, and the impactful legacy that really a hero has had. So we really think this is a great opportunity for a new generation or a next generation to learn about somebody who represents our city so well. We have 3 projects in the works for the A-Leaf Neighborhood Center. This is a rendering, a conceptual drawing of a project called Folding Stories by a 3-woman-led collective called the Red Thread Collectives. On the left, you see a concept rendering. On the right, you see the artists in the fabricator studio looking at one of the panels that will make these mobile configurations. It's called Folding Stories. It's very much inspired by the history of A-Leaf. I think the first Postmaster General ever was named A-Leaf. She is who A-Leaf is named after. And so they've done an incredible amount of community engagement for this project, going to schools, libraries, and other civic spaces, asking for written response to prompts about what the community hopes to see for A-Leaf. So in this area, you may see rendering of the rendering, you see handwritten text. The artists are taking letters from people from the community and turning them into fabric, imposing their script onto fabric and using other traditional fabrics demonstrative of the diversity of A-leaf and creating artwork from it. And so what you see and what we hope is that the residents in A-leaf who encounter this artwork know that they have had a part to play in this process, creative development, but also see themselves reflected in this work. Another artwork for the A-leaf Neighborhood Center is Windbloom by Fallon Mihalik. On the left, you see her concept rendering. On the right, you see, one of the actual structural pieces that will help these petals fan out across the surface. It's called Windbloom because Fallon has mapped wind patterns that relate to the specific site in the A-leaf community. So she's merging science and tech and nature, creating this beautiful pavilion. Really, really excited about this. We think it will be a key feature in the park space of the A-leaf Neighborhood Center building, which I should mention is an award-winning building. It will serve as a lily pad in case of natural disaster, but it is the first of its kind building that merges facilities from Houston Parks, Houston Library, and the health department. And so much deserved by this community. And we're really excited that Fallon, even in her process, has been able to engage community. The same is true for Benny Ansel Flores, who is developing A-leaf Swarm. What you see is a kind of a swarm of flying creatures, butterflies, I would suspect. And on the right, you see that these are actually made from photographs of shoes that are essentially laser cut, fabricated on acrylic. They are really beautiful. I think the image doesn't do justice to what Benny is creating. What's really interesting about this is that Benny took it to the community, asked for a public vote on the types of shoes A-leaf residents like to see or do see. We definitely have Air Force Ones in there. We definitely have Converse in there. So the result and this rendering belies the effort that has gone into Benny's work to engage community, to be present in community, understand community, and create something responsive to community. And I should say that these are the first results we announced after the equity review. And we are not unpleased with the results of the selection for the A-leaf Neighborhood Center. And again, these are the first projects we see where the artists are making a concerted effort to engage community in the process of creative development rather than after something is designed as perhaps a surprise. We have 2 projects in the works for the Sunnyside Multi-Service Center. I don't have renderings to release or to share with you. These projects are currently in the design development phase. These 2 artists we're so pleased to invite them into our collection. Jesse Lott is, I would say, a local legend, an artist of the year, well-known, well-loved, and does not have a piece in our collection. So really excited about this. Irene Reese, a tremendous artist, very much on the rise, expanding and pushing the medium of photography to its limits. She is going to photograph persons from the community. She is essentially developing an archive through her work. In her preliminary research, Irene commented and found that there wasn't much by way of documented history about the Sunnyside neighborhood. And so we're really excited that she's built into her project this investigation of history, of character, of personality, of the people and the place, and is gathering all this information as she works through her process to photograph people in the community, and will most likely offer this package of archival material and imagery to the Gregory School Library to create an archive, to create the history of Sunnyside. Artwork is multidisciplinary for sure, but we're really excited to see it impact other more broad issues than just let's make something look nice for this new building. We have 10 commissions in the works at Houston airports. I'm only going to speak to one. We haven't released a written announcement. We have hosted a press conference on these 10 commissions. And so the artist names are public information, but not all of the artworks are, because some are still in the design development phase. But I wanted to really key on this and say again that authenticity is so important to us. If we're thinking about representation, if we're striving to diversify representation, sensitivity is of the utmost import, especially as it pertains or relates to other people's cultures. I am very touched by this because it links to my own culture and heritage, Indigenous background, but I'll say this is a rendering of a painting by Cruz Ortiz. He's a San Antonio-based artist. It is going to be 20 feet long and 10 feet high, and it will be accompanied by a 10-foot by 10-foot portrait. Cruz is really taking this commitment to authenticity to the next level. The sitter for the portrait is actually a Native American woman who represents the Karankawan heritage and culture. So I asked for a content expert or some sort of authentication of the imagery he was incorporating into his painting, but he did me above it, a one up, and said, well, actually, this is an Indigenous woman who sat for this piece, and she, by being involved and by her enthusiasm and support of the project, vets that this is an authentic representation. And so we're really pleased about that. And those are the kinds of details we really want people to know about our collection. This is the first time when this is installed, it will be the first time Native American representation is included to this degree of authenticity in the city's collection. So it is a hallmark moment for us in some ways. I'll close with a shout out about our 5 current and open opportunities for the new international terminal at Bush Intercontinental Airport. These are substantial opportunities. Altogether, these 5 commissions will invest $3 million in artwork. This is an international call. And to be candid, it's the first international call I've worked on at the city. And so we're seeking artists from across the Americas, Canada, United States, Mexico, Central America, and South America. And we're really excited. This is an opportunity to represent the international presence of our city. And we know that as this is a new international terminal, in some cases, the artwork that's produced through these opportunities will be some person's travelers' first interaction and welcome to Houston. And so we're really excited about placing artwork in such a way that could immediately and somehow tell the story of Houston and the Texas region. Perhaps there's time for a few questions, but in any case, I thank you so much for being present, for letting me share about our collection, and for inviting me to discuss some of these things. So thank you.
Thank you, Theresa. Appreciate it very much. We do have quite a few questions, and I'm going to try to get to them and ask the panelists to provide some answers to this, if you could, as summarized, so that we can try to get to as many as we can. First of all, let me ask you, I've received several questions from artists, I think, that would like to participate more in the programs. How can local artists get more involved with Rise Up Art and the city's art program? I think some of these have been answered, but if you could you quickly address how you can receive inquiries and participation from local artists?
For UpArt, artists can go to our website, upartstudio.org, and just reach out via the contact form there.
I'll speak for the city. All of our open calls and opportunities for civic art are administered by the Houston Arts Alliance. So I would follow their website. You can also sign up for newsletters. Another way that we would really encourage artists to think about getting involved with our program is by serving as panelists in our process. So if anyone here has interest in sitting on a panel or learning more about what that experience is like, I would recommend reaching out to the Civic Art and Design team at Houston Arts Alliance.
Great, thank you.
And I would say at Rice, we're a very small team. So I sort of look at with envy at the staff at HAA, but we're myself and one other person doing both the Moody and public art curating. So we don't have at present an open call system where we have we're able to put out an open call like Theresa just described and then gather. That may be something we can grow toward. I will say that one public art process that is run by Rice and open is the ION. Some of you may know that there's a community-based effort organized by Rice to invite local artists to participate in a public art program at the ION, which is a Rice development just off 59. So I would say look into the ION, and of course, I'm always happy to meet artists and welcome. All of our programs are free and open to the public, and we hope you'll come and see us.
Great, thank you, Alison. If someone wants to donate art to the city of Houston, how could they do that?
There is a process for that. In a moment, I can put the link in the chat that gives an overview of that process. I will say it's not often the case that we agree to accept artworks. And so it is a process that really asks to prove the provenance of an artwork, its value. And again, as Elia mentioned, we ask that artworks that are gifted to the city come with an endowment. Until they are accessioned into the collection, they are not eligible to be conserved by civic art dollars. So if you bear with me, I'll add a link to the chat.
Great, thank you. Can you tell me, are there any art tours? Does anyone host art tours of the installations that we've seen today? Any organized tours of any kind?
I will say that I have seen, I mean, I think you could probably search public art tours in Houston. I can't recall the specific outfits, but I will say that with our Houston mural map, you can create your own self-guided tour. And I know that the city of Houston also has a map for their collection as well, where you could kind of map your own tour. Great.
And Elia, a question for you. Which city council member was the one that really got you going? You mentioned in your presentation that you had a very supportive council member.
Yes, it was Larry Green in District K. He's now deceased. But fortunately, his successor, Vice Mayor Pro Tem Martha Casix Tatum, she's just as supportive of public art. So it continues in that district.
Fantastic, thank you. Can you tell me, Theresa, where is the Barbara Jordan Monument being installed?
It's going to be, I'm sorry I didn't include that, in the 4th Ward at the Gregory School, which is a Houston Public Library location and archive, the African American Archive.
Great. And just as a side note, somebody asked if you could say, I think I know what you're going to answer, but what is in your mind the most important community piece that we have in the city today?
To be honest, I don't think we've created it yet. There is so much work to do in terms of representation and honoring sites of memory. I think that as we advance this program and we get better at community engagement, that artwork will reveal itself. It will be Houston centric. It will tell the story probably of an underrepresented community in Houston, an unknown history or an uncovered history that's very real about this place. So I would say the best and most important is yet to come.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We're good, excellent. Can you help provide some advice to artists so they can become more proficient in the business side of creating public art?
I think the real challenge, personally, sorry to jump in on that one, is that this work takes experience. It's very much something that you learn as you go. We are working closely with Houston Arts Alliance to really identify those points in our process where we can offer more professional development. As we refine our process, we're seeing more first-time applicants advance to finalists and proposing concepts to our calls through the RFP process. And so we are having to get better at providing that support as they move through a commission project. But it's no easy feat. I'd say the same about learning to curate. The best way to learn is to do. And so I think of temporary public art program as maybe not an entry point, but as a really wonderful opportunity to learn about the public art process. And especially as an artist moves from a studio practice to a public art practice, I really do think temporary artwork would be kind of a nice entry to a pipeline. Through that experience, I really do think that artists can inform themselves in large part how to apply to more substantial commissions in the future.
And I would just jump in to give a shout out to our colleagues at Fresh Arts, which is a nonprofit here in Houston that is geared towards training individual artists. And they often do have courses about the business side of, creating a studio practice and getting commissions and all of that. So Fresh Arts does that occasionally, Art League Houston, but Fresh Arts, I would say, definitely check out what they're up to.
And to Theresa's point on temporary projects, the mini murals are considered temporary art. And we have had, several artists who had never painted in a public space before. And so that, and who have later moved on to doing bigger works. And so I agree with Theresa that, working at a smaller scale or just having the opportunity goes a long way.
Great, thank you. Can you address the educational aspects of public art? There was a question about to what degree, for instance, can public art be a means of educating folks on the environment? How do you see that aspect of public art?
Well, I can just speak coming from an educational institution, we view it as absolutely critical. So environment is, I'll harken back to that image I showed of Sandra Perry's work where she went into historic Freedmanstown and really looked at issues of environmental racism and the way in which certain communities have been relegated, I would say, to spaces in the Gulf Coast area, at least, that have historically flooded. And by drawing attention to that visually can prompt a conversation about history, about our current moment, about what the future holds. And so, at Rice, particularly all of our temporary projects, I think really have the opportunity to bring community to conversation around these important topics.
And I'd say, as an example, MoCA released an RFQ for a project really that targets neighborhoods who are affected by factories, by industry. And so looking, again, a geographic look at what's happening in Houston and where art is tells us where there's opportunities. And in this case, and I'm sorry I don't have all the details about it, I'll also share a link to a post about that. In this case, it is the context of the environment that predicates the art opportunity. And so it seeks artists in 5 complete communities, I believe, to address and bring awareness about the environment through art making. And so again, it's multidisciplinary work that we're all doing, and there's always opportunity to invite social justice, environmental awareness, and issues that are really pertinent to our well-being and which artists seem to champion in a primary way.
Great, thank you. What types of resources are available to support nurturing artists in areas like Freedmanstown to successfully implement art projects?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What types of resources are available to support nurturing artists in areas like Freedmanstown to successfully implement art projects?
I don't know if that I would say if this was a resource, but it's definitely an opportunity. I return to the temporary art opportunity. It is something that requires the self-initiating of an artist. And those artists who are motivated do pursue. I saw her earlier that we have Gus viewing. Gus Capriva, he launched and founded the Heights Boulevard program, has expanded temporary art placement across the city, has big aspirations and goals about how many artworks he can place at once. It is a program that works. It is a program that offers artists who may not have a tremendous amount of experience an opportunity, if they self-initiate, to seek that experience. I think that is kind of, again, a self-motivated, self-guided opportunity. Some artists would have applied for the Barbara Jordan commemorative project. That was an opportunity. I do believe that there will be future opportunities, especially as we understand that Freedmanstown is in pursuit of UNESCO World Heritage designation. We want to also think about infrastructure in the area and the services the city provides as a city outside of art, and how we can look at again, as Elia has given examples of, bring art and infrastructure together. So those may be future opportunities that we hope to see there.
I'd like to, I know we're getting close to the end, so I want to ask a couple of questions of my own now. One thought I just wanted to get your opinion on is, it's interesting that public infrastructure is also potentially a canvas for public art. And I think that's really important. But one area that I think I wonder whether we could do better is working with TxDOT. It seems to me that a lot of our freeway work sometimes does not necessarily stand up to the expectations that we would like to have for that kind of infrastructure design. How do you think we could work more effectively with TxDOT to get a higher quality of design for our major infrastructure systems?
Well, TxDOT is, historically has not been, I would say, the easiest to help realize public art projects specifically. More recently, I'd say within the last year, I have had conversations with TxDOT, and they are much more open to public art on their infrastructure. Not yet to the point of providing funding for it, but they are open to giving permission for it, and especially where there's maintenance involved. So a lot of times in areas where there's a management district, it's more favorable because the management district is able to maintain the works of art in the longer term. But TxDOT has historically not been the easiest to work with.
Thank you. I totally agree with you, but I wish we need to figure that out hopefully at some point. And then lastly, I just want to ask you, Scenic Houston is really committed to the idea of improving the public realm. And I think it would be great for us to have a continuing discussion on this topic, because where we want to intervene in certain areas of the city, I think integrating public art in that intervention is essential. So I think the presentations are fantastic. And I would like for Scenic Houston and yourselves and ourselves to work together a little more on some of the projects that we're engaged in, and really find the synergy between us to impact even more some of the work that we're doing and with public art together. And so with that, I'd like to thank you very much. And one last question. There's a lot of folks that are interested in seeing these presentations. Do you think that we could provide a link for the presentations? Would you be okay letting folks see those presentations individually?
Yes.
Great, fantastic. So what we'll do is we'll set up a link in our website, Scenic Houston website, so that folks can go look at the presentations, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you very much for your participation today. It's been really, really interesting. I mean, for me, I've learned so much about the artists, just the artists in Houston and our art scene. Thank you for that. And I look forward to continuing to see the amazing achievements of art, public art in Houston that we've seen so far. Heather, I'll pass it to you.
Roger, first, thank you so much for moderating today. You did an excellent job. Thank you very much. Elia, Allison, and Theresa, that was, I think that I always say this, but I think that was my favorite scenic mornings ever. You guys did such an amazing job. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I learned so much. Allison, I already downloaded the app. I can't wait to use it with my kids. Elia, I've told you, we go looking at all your public art from your map. It is just incredible what you've done. And Theresa, I learned more about what the city's doing today. I mean, I had no idea that you were doing all of that. And I think it's what all of you doing is, what all of you are doing is not only creating beautiful scenery in Houston, but really changing our quality of life. So thank you all so much. Thank you for participating today. I'd like to thank our sponsor again, C3 Building Solutions. We couldn't do this without you. And I'll do my last plug. This is a free event, but you can always go to our website and please donate to Scenic Houston. Any amount would help. We want to keep doing these events. And this one was so exciting. I hope to do another art one again soon. There's so much great art, public art going on in Houston. So you can go to our website at scenichouston.org. And again, no pressure, but if you'd like to donate, we would certainly appreciate it. And thanks everyone again. Thanks for joining us this morning. And our next Scenic Mornings will be coming up in May or June. We haven't gotten the nailed down the date exactly. It will be a very exciting one as well. And also just keep on the lookout. Scenic Houston will be having our Scenic Star cocktail party in May. So we'll share information with you about that too. Hope you all can join us. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.